Regardless of what's going on in the economy, the sports stadium market remains a steady sliver of construction activity. IbisWorld estimates that U.S. construction demand over the next 5 years will increase annually by nearly 2% to $12.3 billion. Worldwide, that annual growth rate is projected to be closer to 22% according to Mordor Intelligence. Joining us today to discuss some trends in sports stadium and arena sector is Dewey Newton, Senior Vice President who heads up Turner Construction Sports Group. Welcome, Dewey.
Good morning. How are you, John?
I'm fine, thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Great, my pleasure.
Dewey, let's start off by examining what the current state of demand for sports venue construction and renovation is right now and where that demand is coming from.
Well, I think it's a lot of professional. I would say that some of the growth rates that you cited are probably a little bit low for the next 3 to 5 years, only because they were negative for the last 2 to 3 years. So There's definitely some pent up demand. I mean, baseball and collegiate sports were physically stopped. I mean, football trickled in there pretty well. Soccer did well. So I just think the numbers will be a little greater, and we're seeing that on my lead logs and on all sports. We're seeing a pretty good comeback in 22 and 23, and then probably back to normal in 24, 25. In collegiate, we see mostly renovations, but some new, but mostly renovations to existing facilities, mostly for athletic, getting athletes ready. So it's not really fan experience much things. It's mostly bringing the stadiums up to athletic capabilities to match other universities. The biggest thing we see is NFL has both new and renovation. If you think of the NFL, a 10-year-old stadium is, I don't want to say outdated, but it's 10-year-old stadiums are considered old now.
Yeah.
But they're also doing new. We just finished SoFi, of course, and we're looking at a few other things. Baseball is mostly renovation, and that's mostly fan experience items, concessions, toilet parity, touch and feel, things like that, some scoreboards, audiovisual. But we are seeing collegiate come back pretty strong coming into 2022.
Mm-hmm.
This is footage of the wet-laid gypsum underlayment process. Don't forget the mess it makes. Take a mental picture. Because when it comes to the future of high-performing sound and fire-resistant subfloor assemblies, gypsum underlayment can be a thing of the past. Introducing Exacore. Measure, cut, fasten. Designed to fit seamlessly into your build process, Exacore magnesium oxide panels are installed like OSB or plywood subfloor panels.
My guys learned how to install it within 5 minutes. Any framer can install this product.
If it sounds simple, it's because it is.
They're not having to, add tapes or another job to install jigs. Once the framer does it, that's it. They skip a step. Time is money.
Easily installed as a subfloor or underlayment. Just measure, cut, fasten, build, protect, live. Exacore.
Are there any amenities right now that are must-haves in sports venues?
Yeah, I'd say yes. The industry has changed over the years, of course, like most do. But we see, if you look at the NFL and baseball, it used to be 70-30 men versus women, and now it's almost 50-50, and in some cases, it's higher in women than men. So toilet parity, better food, more concessions with more diverse variety is critical. We're also seeing, people that are young, and younger than me, of course, they want places to gather. I remember when I was a kid or a teenager going to games, standing room only was a $2 ticket just to get in the stadium, and it wasn't a good seat. And right now, standing room only, there's space that you have to have where people can leave their seat and still see a game to cater to the younger generation, because it's a social gathering place. So SRO is actually a good thing these days, and it didn't used to be. But getting rid of the long lines so people don't miss the action, So, that's why I said diversity of concessions and quality of food, which means more space for kitchens and different types of kitchens. But the other thing is, robust sound and video, because everybody loves that. It doesn't have to be incredible, but it has to be more than what we used to call a jumbotron. So that's that. And then we're also seeing, from a revenue point of view, access to the suite and club levels for a normal individual. And normal just means somebody that wants to go to the game with 4 friends for one weekend and not be tied to a season pass. That's very popular. People at 20 to 40 years old. We're seeing a lot of club and suite space dedicated to individual purchase games.
Yeah. I noticed that Turner prefers to discuss what you're referring to as desired atmosphere over fan experience when you're kind of having initial conversations with clients. Can you talk a little bit about what you mean by that?
Yeah, I've done sports my whole career with Turner for 36 years, but in the last 7 to 8, I've focused mostly on just sports and convention centers. You can see in the background there, that's the Las Vegas Convention Center that we just finished last December. I was a principal there. And the first thing we asked is, what do you want the atmosphere of this convention center to be? Because anybody that knows Las Vegas, when you see this building and then you see the existing 3 million square feet, they're completely different. The atmosphere, the fan, it's not a fan experience when you're in a convention center, but the experience of the user is very important. In sports, I like to ask about, describe to me the atmosphere of what you want your fans to feel, and that then determines the fan experience. But I always determine it. Fan experience is things that you touch, things that you can eat. How long did you wait in line? The video and the audio boards, are they really cool? Are they stat, replay? All that's the fan experience. But the atmosphere, to me, which is a question I ask my clients, tell me what you want the people to feel and what's the emotional connection with the event, because that's all about branding. And to me, the atmosphere of a stadium does not have to be always the sport. It's this, people go to stadiums now to be with other people. They stay there longer, they spend more money, they bring their friends. So to me, they both work together. Fan experience has to be there or they won't go back. But you can push your brand into the atmosphere, and then you have a win-win. I mean, I live in Dallas, and every time I go to American Airlines Center, which we didn't build, by the way, but it's a beautiful place, and it's no matter what the show is, it's very professional, and it's clean. People are friendly. You just walk out of there saying that, I can't wait to go back there again, because the brand is done so well.
What you're describing would explain why so many sports venues right now are being built within the context of entertainment districts. Right. Are you seeing that as a bigger trend these days in terms of you get that nexus of the two experiences, or broader experiences, if you will?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of the different experience, but also the broader experience of, think of football. There's 10 games a year, and if you have a downtown stadium, which there's many in the NFL, they need to be able to show that the facility is used more than just 10 football games. And there's a couple of concerts, but if it's part of an entertainment district, it's still there, and you can have entertainment in the stadium when there's not an event. So that downtown stadiums have a unique ability to attract people down. Nashville is a perfect example. I went to a Monday night game there a few weeks ago, and the downtown was full the entire day.
Really?
Part of the entertainment, who couldn't wait to cross the river to get over to the game. In the suburbs, we see a little more of the retail and entertainment side, versus downtown is more food and beverage and entertainment. But it's really to draw the use of the facility to be part of something bigger, even where some of the amenities that are in the entertainment district are actually in the stadium. So you can go in the stadium and do some things that when there's not an event there. And we see that in Las Vegas with the T-Mobile Arena. There's a lot of things happening outside that before the event. And then baseball, of course, is doing it mostly because they have 80 games, and they're trying to get people out to some entertainment district 80 times before the game. So we do see that mostly in Major League Baseball. Soccer is kind of a different animal because the people go there all the time and they're part of the event no matter what. So, you know, the other thing is part of the community. Do you want these facilities to be part of the community and have the community able to enjoy them? And we see that's one of the main reasons that the districts are popular.
Mhm. Aside from the issue of cost, are you seeing greater demand for enclosed stadiums these days? You know, I'll share an anecdote with you. I don't know whether
Sure.
you saw this or not, but last year at the U.S. Open in tennis, there was a major rainstorm that even with the covered stadium, the rain was still getting in. So it sort of defeated the purpose in some respects. But I'm just wondering whether there's any consensus right now among clients about whether or not an enclosed stadium is almost a necessity, or kind of what's the status of that right now in terms of the thinking in the industry?
Well, it's a good point. And I would say the biggest driver of roofs or enclosures of some kind is history. And then, of course, weather. And then in some cases, regulation. So, you know, in Major League Soccer, you can cover the fan, but you cannot cover the field.
Right.
So that's just a strict regulation. In baseball, it's mostly driven by weather. You know, I grew up in Chicago where, you know, the Cubs played during the hottest time of the year and always thought that, you know, hindered their ability to make the playoffs because every other team was playing at night. And, you know, Turner added the lights at some point and Wrigley played the lights, and 50 years, you know, later they won the World Series.
Right.
I say it's because of the lights, obviously, but and then, but history in football, it's about history. Is, you know, do we want to cover the stadium when the fans, you know, I remember when we renovated Arrowhead, on the ballot was, would you vote to fund some renovation of Arrowhead if the team participated in the funds? And the vote was major yes. And the second question, would you vote to add a roof if the team participated in the cost of the roof? And it was a completely opposite answer. It was no. So just the history of the fans being outside and all that really drove football. So it's different, you know. And then you look at baseball, some teams are covered and, you know, ventilated and cooled, and other teams like Seattle are just covered because it rains a lot. So at Seattle, an umbrella comes over, it rains, and the umbrella goes up. It's not an enclosed stadium, but it's technically covered. So
Yeah.
we see, you know, it's history, weather, and regulation would be my order.
To what extent is Turner seeing demand or growing demand for esports venues? I read this morning a story about something in Philadelphia called The Block, which is a 40,000 square foot venue, half of which is devoted for esports and streaming. And I'm just wondering what kind of demand are you guys seeing for that type of venue right now?
Well, it's increasing, but to your point, most of the esports we see are facilities that are underused that are being converted, and most of those are, you know, conference or convention centers that have capacity to take on esports and create the little, you know, the arenas inside. But it takes a significant amount of infrastructure, as you know, to do that, you know, electrically and broadband and all those things. The only one I know that's out there right now saying we want an esports arena is Toronto, and that's in the early design stages.
Yeah. You talked about the infrastructure component. Is that mostly electrical?
Electrical and streaming and broadband capability. I mean, these are big drivers. And wherever you have electrical, you have, you know, air and HVAC. So it's a pretty good expense to do. And that's why I think the smaller existing buildings have a little advantage, because it's hard to add and program into a new space. But if you have the bones, it's easier to add to the existing bones.
In New Jersey, where the New York Giants play football, one of the sports books has an office right on the facility. And I'm just wondering whether you think sports betting is going to take up a bigger role in sports venues, and if that's the case, what does that mean for design and construction?
Well, it'll be a big change. I mean, I see most of the proposed or places where people, want to do gambling. It's being driven by state statutes mostly.
Right.
I don't see the sanctioning bodies taking the lead on gambling, especially inside the facilities. There was a ballot. I don't know if it was on the previous November or it's on next April, but Alabama was trying to get statewide betting on sports and actually have facilities for betting inside the sports facilities. I don't know if it passed yet because I don't know if it's November or April. But it's a state statute issue. Every state is different. We do a lot of work for Penn Gaming too. And, it's every state where we build a casino, it's completely different, even though the casino itself is the same. The rules and the guts of the building are different. But again, I don't see the sanctioning bodies pushing that. And for the large work that we do, I haven't really seen it creep in yet.
Dewey, I would be remiss if I didn't give you an opportunity to talk about projects that you're working on right now. Is there anyone in particular that you'd like to call out?
Well, we just finished SoFi, which is,
Los Angeles,
fantastic
right?
facility.
Right.
I was a principal in charge early on that job, and I moved over to Las Vegas to build the convention center. So our sports group does sports and public assembly. I've got 40 dedicated sports people in my group, but if you look at Turner across the 45 cities, we've got over 1,000 people that have worked on sports, across the country. And we're a little different. I mean, I only do sports and convention centers as an SVP. So I try and know the industry as best I can. And it also brings some diversity because I've worked with NASCAR, I've worked with MLB, NFL, hockey. I mean, soccer, of course. We did the original Arthur Ashe for tennis. So we cross all the sports boundaries, and it's really great. I mean, it's really a lot of fun.
Yeah, I can imagine. How much interaction do you have with the teams themselves?
Very much. I mean, I had a meeting this week with a team where we have an NDA, so I can't really disclose what we're doing. We're looking at some potential upgrades in Nashville for the Titans. Washington, of course, is looking for a new property for a Washington football team. There's some talk about things in Cleveland and Tampa Bay. I mean, the NFL is extremely active right now, extremely active.
Yeah. My last question revolves around technology. And you alluded earlier to how all teams are trying to attract a younger audience. And how much of a role is technology going to play in that, do you think?
It's quite a large role. I mean, when I talked earlier about the SRO experience, it's complete. That's a place now. We kind of call it social gathering areas. The younger generation doesn't sit and watch the whole game from their seat. They want to get up. They want to see their friends. You have to have the technology to follow them. You have to have the broadband to capture, 40,000 people doing live postings at all the same time and wanting instant feedback. So the technology in the stadiums to attract the younger generation is huge. And that goes along with, with video and audio. A lot of the video screens are, stat board. You have instant stats on players, every time they make a play, the replays. It's just, if you look at what we did at SoFi, a two-sided board as big as the football field, it's just absolutely incredible.
It is amazing. You see it on TV, and it's like spectacular. Yeah. Dewey, thanks for spending.
Tell you how much it costs.
Well, that's another episode. Dewey, thanks for talking to us about this. I really appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And this is John Caulfield from Building Design and Construction. Thanks for joining us.